Okay, it's 1 minute after 8:30. We'll open up the Commissioners meeting for March 13th. First item on the agenda is public input. From anybody? Yes, Mr. Albee?
I had a chance to speak with Will after Monday's meeting.
Right.
And I don't know what the difficulty is about the wood processing, whether or not it's profitable or not. It seems pretty self-evident. You know, a quick run through the numbers costs you $85 an hour to operate that department. So every hour the lights are on, that it's running 85 bucks an hour. So if you were to, and your wood cost is approximately $80 a cord. So every hour that wood processor is running, if it were to make 1 cord per hour, those two costs add up to $160. You're selling it at $275, I believe.
Right.
So you get $115 worth of net at those figures. If you were to add a processor to it at $65,000, and assuming that it doesn't last as long as the old processor, it only lasts for 10 years as opposed to 15 years, you're adding an additional $55 worth of cost per cord at 1 cord per hour. You're still profitable. You're $220 and you're selling at $275. The new processor, Will says, will do 4 cords an hour. So even if you discount that by 50% and do twice as much wood per hour, your costs drop significantly if you remain at 125 cords.
Yeah.
The more important or more interesting question would be you're running a $31,800 shortfall in that department, expenses versus income. And wouldn't it be more prudent to increase the amount of wood production to offset that $31,800? Your costs are not going to increase substantially. They're going to increase by the $80 a cord that you're buying the wood, but the processor cost remains the same. The hourly rate that you're running your department remains the same. So, I mean, I think that would be a lot more reasonable way to approach the issue. We had a $70,000 shortfall in that department not so long ago. If you don't do something about the wood processor, you're going to not do 125 cords. You may not do any wood, at which point you're now back to, because you made $40,000 worth of revenue from wood, right. You're back to $70,000 worth of cost.
Yep.
For those who, for whatever reason, think we should eliminate the farm, if you were to eliminate 100% of the expense of the farm, you're also eliminating 100% of the revenue of the farm. So you're left with $30,000. That doesn't even pay one individual, and I don't think you can get one individual to mow all the lawns and plow all the snow. That's assuming that you're breaking out your consumables at the rate of at the daily rate. Even if you add half of the fuel cost and the maintenance cost back in, and I don't think the wood processor uses half of the fuel of the farm department, you're still profitable.
Yeah.
So I think you need to make the case next Monday, revisit this. They have until the end of March to finish this budget.
I think they will finish it next week.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think this issue ought to come up again. I don't know that Will was served very well by his testimony or yours on the processor. And I think you need to flesh out the numbers and pass it on.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up was I wanted to remind Commissioner Sorensen that in 2009 we had a gentleman come in here from Colorado who was part of the National Correctional Institution
AIC, was it?
He spent a week here doing a comprehensive study of all of the issues and all of the parts of the jail. I think there's a lot of conversation about what happened, what didn't happen. There's no way to prove negative, but I think that we have lived up to the letter of whatever law there is regarding inspecting the jail. And there's a number of laws on the books that you might want to think about when you think about those inspections. Selectmen are required to perambulate the lines of the town on a biennial basis. I don't know how many selectmen, I did it once, but I don't know how many selectmen are actually doing that. But the purpose for that, as is the purpose for the jail inspections, is to make sure that the commissioners are aware of what's happening, whether or not the prisoners are being taken care of properly, whether or not the security is up to snuff, etc. I think that you definitely lived up to the letter of the law. And I would certainly hope that you'd share with us any inspection that has been done.
Did you get any copies of those inspections?
I have one here, which I was going to show to Commissioner Kenny, that was certainly done before she was on.
So you have
Before.
something from 2010, 9 and under?
No, I have one from 2011.
So it was in my term? Okay, thank you.
Your statement is nobody did it before you.
In my term.
That's correct. And
So I came in 2011. So do you have something from 2010, 9 and under?
I only have right this minute.
Okay,
I
so
only
it
have-
was in my term, so I was right. Thank
Well,
you.
Need to get a copy of mine. Go ahead.
When I left office, there was a file drawer on the right-hand side of the desk that was full of all of Marge Webster's and my
Yep.
jail information. I have no idea what's there now.
And that was also verified by previous Commissioner Webster that there was a file left in your desk drawer. And when you left, there was one.
With jail inspections?
That's what,
Are you saying that there were jail inspections left there in a drawer?
All of the jail information was in the right-hand drawer.
Oh, information.
Everything, the inspections, the report from the person who did the study in 2009, the reports from the various engineers that had studied the wall issue,
right.
my notes on, I mean, I probably spent 40 days from time to time visiting the jail and visiting the various aspects of it for one reason or another. So that was in there as well.
Because I've been told when I took office that all the 3 commissioners have copies of everything. That is what I've been told. And not too long ago, when somebody from the public filed a right to know request, and he got only a jail inspection from 2011, he asked where the other one was from 2010, 9 and under, and Commissioner Sorensen said right here on camera that it was overlooked. It was never done.
In 2011, I don't know.
No, it was never done. So all of the inspections were never done. The story keeps on changing every 2 weeks.
Well, this is the first time I've been here in a long time, and I just wanted to remind the commission of what I had left.
Yeah.
I don't get to go and look through desk drawers, so I can't find it for you.
Okay. Thank you. Other public input? Melissa?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Last week, when I was here, we were talking about whether or not the county's new personnel policy also applies to the commissioners. And you had indicated yes, it did, or yes, it should. One of the things in the employee personnel policy is a social media policy.
Right. We haven't approved all that yet, but go ahead.
Okay. In part, it says that the purpose of the policy is to guide employee conduct with regards to social media, and people should use discretion so as not to discredit or disrespect Carroll County or its departments or employees in their online activities. So Are we saying that this applies to the commissioners too?
I don't know why we have a employee personal handbook applying to commissioners. This is for employees.
You mean we're
Commissioners
special? We're
the
special?
commissioners are, well, the commissioners are running the county.
Yeah.
We have to supervise those employees and department heads. Why would the same apply to us?
I think we have to set the example.
Yeah, but the same rules what the employees are doing? Never heard of that.
And I would,
Oh.
I would agree with Commissioner Sorensen that if you're going to lead people, you should set the example.
Yeah, you should set it, but you cannot apply the same rules and everything from the employees to the commissioners. It is an employee handbook.
Anything else?
Well, that excuse could be used throughout this entire policy then. So you can harass people, you can hit them, you can be late, you can,
You can twist the words whatever you want. So I think the sheriff, you have a own set of rules. That means the people who works under you, everything what applies to them apply to you. Is that correct, Sheriff?
I would certainly hope so, to be honest. Again, leading by example would be key in that factor.
I don't think you can have the same rules for, that is it. It's the employee handbook. So for who is that? So the employee handbook is for commissioners.
Mr. Babson?
I think it's a very simple answer. You lead from the top, not the bottom. Or you lead from the front, not the back. And it certainly should apply to the commissioners.
Go ahead, we're still in public input.
I-
Wait a minute.
I just-
Go ahead, one more.
it was still regarding this policy, if I could ask while you're in the, because you haven't approved them yet.
Officially, yeah.
Under the second paragraph for policy, it says, I believe that's where it is, it applies to social networking sites, including blogs, networking sites, photo sharing, video sharing. It lists a few things, and I would ask that the commissioners add the word websites, personal websites, to that paragraph.
Okay.
So you're back on a personal vendetta because you want to shut down my website? Because for 2 years you're writing trash, and you know now the truth and facts are coming out.
Okay, we're still in public input. Go ahead.
Because I suppose an employee could also start their own website and complain about
Okay.
the county as well. So that it applies fairly to everybody, so everybody's playing by the same rules.
Thank you.
And I think what you should do, go to senators and other places and elected officials and ask them to shut down their websites.
Okay, Mr. Albee, you had your hand up.
And Ed also.
Yep.
Actually, the executive needs to live to a higher standard than the employee. It's not the other way around. The executive needs to set an example not equal to the employee's example, but more intently to the purpose of working for the betterment of the county.
Point well taken. Ed, you had comment?
The delegation just voted in a budget of $27.5 or $27.8 million. This conversation we're having is just irrelevant. Anything you put on the internet, you're gonna see. Anything you put in the paper, people are gonna see it. You have to be responsible for what you write and what you say. The fact that you need a handbook to do that, if you're willing to put something in the paper or on the internet, you just have to be responsible. And if you're not, you're going to be told you're not, and you're going to hear
You're gonna be held.
you don't need a book. And I think the voters of Carroll County would appreciate that we move into the business and not do this personal. I think personal stuff can take care of itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Well, I was just gonna say, now you're getting into, you know, your constitutional right to the First Amendment. And now that we're gonna try to start superseding our constitutional rights once again, I mean, it's like Ed said, this is a moot point, and it shouldn't be wasting the county's time, period.
Absolutely right, and I want to thank the 900 people who coming on my website and say that a lot of people should have a website, elected officials, and thank me for my constitutional services.
Okay. Melissa?
Could you just clarify for me the purpose of having an employee handbook?
Purpose for the handbook is a guideline for our county employees to follow.
Can I ask a question about the $27.5 million budget that went through on Monday?
Sure. Yeah.
As far as I remember, the delegation didn't go into convention to actually ratify their acceptance of that $27.5 million budget.
Yep.
So my question, and there was a motion made that gives the commission an opportunity to come back with more information about the wood processor.
Correct.
Do you intend to do that on Monday when they meet again?
I think that's going to be up to us whether we can get it done by Monday.
Okay.
My understanding from the chairman was that her next meeting at that time was going to be in May.
Right.
But because they didn't finish the budget, they will be going and looking at the revenue side of the budget before they approve the bottom line.
As far as regional appropriations go, there are hundreds of nonprofits in New Hampshire. How does a regional appropriation come to be on the county budget?
By delegation approval.
So any nonprofit can come to the delegation and ask to be included in the county budget?
As long as it affects Carroll County residents.
One of the things that was voted down was an appropriation for the Blue Loon for Carroll County Transit.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that was, I believe it was Representative Chandler said that the delegation had told these nonprofits if they were going to counties, they couldn't come, towns, they couldn't come to the county for funding as well.
Yeah.
But I'm a little confused because the VNA and Hospice goes to all the towns and the county, and they were given an appropriation on Monday.
Go ahead.
Melissa, I'm not sure that Representative Chandler said they couldn't come. He said that something to the effect that it would be double dipping, or he felt it would be double dipping, but he didn't say they couldn't come.
And that seemed to sway the delegation on Monday by him saying that. So maybe that was...
Well, that's the delegation. We administer their budget after it's passed. Well, how they vote is...
So the commissioners don't put these amounts in there, the delegation does?
For regional appropriations, they normally do.
Okay.
I think we will start looking at the regional appropriations because ultimately we are responsible for the budget that we submit. Regarding the transit system, I think one of the representatives said it didn't affect every town in the county. And that's something that I've always looked at also, and looking at when people come in asking for money, to make sure that every town that pays their county tax has the opportunity to receive that service. And the transit company from the town of Brookfield, right. It didn't affect them. I'm sure it doesn't go up to Chatham. Eaton last night at their town meeting turned down a $3,000 request from that same transit because nobody in Eaton was being affected by it. But
I also, one other thing on the budget, I didn't hear any mention about the DocStar system and filing system, so I was wondering what the status of that is.
we haven't decided on that, and that would be put out for bid.
Is there money in the budget for it if you decide to do it?
I don't believe so. It came in late. See, our budget was in the first week of December.
Right.
They came in after that.
But we still have a chance now to ask the delegation.
That's true.
Put in some money for
Yeah.
the DocStar.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
The only thing we can do is ask for perhaps what they've requested, but it still have to be put out for bid.
Can you remind me what they requested? Do you remember?
I think it was $24,000 and plus an annual fee.
Okay, so if it wasn't added, you'd have to find it somewhere else in the budget if you wanted to do it?
If we decide to do it, that's correct. Or have a, what do they call it? Additional.
Supplemental?
Supplemental budget before the 1st of September.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I don't know whether I misunderstood you or whether you misspoke, but I understood you to say that the delegation makes up the amounts for the regional appropriation. I'd like to point out
We
the
do.
commissioners do also.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
We submit it, right.
Yes.
Mr. Albee?
One line that I thought got no coverage whatsoever, and I don't know that anybody's spent any time lately trying to audit this line, but it came to my mind when Representative Algren and Umberger were blaming the nursing home for the increase in the budget. And I look at the DEAS line, which since 2010 has gone up $1.5 million. Since when I was a commissioner, it's gone up well over $2 million. So it's gone up $1.4 million, $1.5 million
Yep.
since we opened the nursing home. I mean, if that, and I don't know that, which is almost double. I don't know that we've doubled the number of residents in the Carroll County that are in need of the DEAS service.
I can't believe that either.
I mean, it is ostensibly is the state does not match the federal government for Medicaid. They pass that cost down to the county taxpayer. And I can't imagine that Carroll County has doubled its need in 2 years.
No.
So had that line stayed static or reasonably tracking with the economy, all of the numbers we projected before we began the nursing home would still be correct. So I think I call into the state to have them justify $4,107,000 in the DEAS, and would certainly be appropriate.
Actually, our budget is up by $1 million, and a lot of it is caused by that DEAS line item. I believe there are 3 representatives on the Health and Human Service Committee in Concord. I brought that up several times at the delegation meeting for somebody to look into it, to find out what the heck is going on. The counties went into an agreement with the state regarding a cap set on that. At that point, when we did go into a contract on that, the youth portion of it was going up more so than the aid to elderly. And therefore, it was a benefit to share that expense, but there was a cap set on it, and they just keep raising the cap. There's nothing we can do. It's all done by either administrative rule in Concord or by the state legislature. And the 3 people that sat on that committee should be looking into it for the benefit of the citizens of Carroll County.
Well, I would certainly hope that the benefit from the federal government paying 100% of the Medicaid increase is going to inure to the county and not to the state, because the state's not paying anything.
Yep.
The Association of Counties, I talked to the lady there.
Speak up so they can hear you, I think.
Well, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, except that I know the other 9 counties are very concerned about the impact. You can imagine if it's $4 million from us, what it must be for Hillsborough or Rockingham. And I don't know who the lady was, what her position is, because I'm new at it at the Association of Counties.
She's a representative from one of the counties on human services.
Yep. And you're beginning to see some real pushback on this from the counties, which should have happened several years ago, not this year.
It's for all intents and purposes a third of our county tax bill.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we have no say.
We get the bill and we have to pay it. Okay.
It's
Good.
it's
Anybody
related-
else have any public input? Chance? All right, one more.
It's related to this discussion. I've made a few phone calls over the last week and a half trying to sort out exactly what it is and why we pay, et cetera. Am I right that the county used to administer it and then the state took it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to find out how much of that $4 million is administrative costs for the state to do it for us.
We don't know.
I think you need to talk with the representatives on the Health and Human Services Committee.
I have sent a right to know to DHHS. I'm just awaiting some information, but that was my big question, is how much of that is actually being used to care for people and how much of it is actually being paid to administer the program?
Yeah, yeah.
And why did they take it from the county?
I think Mr. Schmidt, Representative Schmidt and Representative Ticehurst, and with one other, I'm not sure who it was, but just
Mr.
Right?
Nelson, Mr. Nelson.
Nelson, okay. Those are the three you ought to contact and find out what's going on.
Thank you.
If there is an administrative fee taken off
I'm
that.
sure there
Yep.
is.
Probably.
I mean, I would think a dissection of this line is certainly more productive than trying to figure out how much bar and chain oil we use for the wood process.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Absolutely.
You're right. $1.5 million versus 65,000.
One which we get some revenue back from and the other we don't get any.
Okay. We'll go into our regular agenda in minutes of last week.
Are there any corrections?
I read them, I don't have any. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Nancy, in the paragraph beginning Damon Steer, it isn't the Bureau of the Elderly, it's the Department of Elderly. Front page, right in the beginning, 1, 4, 5, or 6 paragraphs down. Damon Steer asked
Oh, I
about
see,
that
yeah.
issue. That's the Department of Elderly.
Yep. Didn't catch
A little farther down, Commissioner Babson inquired about the procedure for wood stacking and bagging. I don't remember asking that, but maybe I did.
Where were you on that?
2 more paragraphs down.
Okay. Inquired about the
I
procedure.
think I
for
know how to
stacking.
stack wood, and I think I could put it in a bag if I had to.
Inquired about that.
Point of order.
You want that deleted?
No, I don't remember the discussion, that's all.
Okay.
Point of order, I hate to correct Commissioner Babson, but the name of that agency is the Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services now.
Yes, I looked it up.
Well,
So it
thank you.
falls under DEAS.
It's
Thank you, it's on our sheets, it's
That's right.
DEAS.
It's
Thank
BEAS
you.
now.
Okay.
I did look it up, so
Good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
you're welcome.
Okay, any other questions?
The bottom of page, dialogue about the budget increases continued. Representative said the revenue neutral policy should have been in place, but it did not work out. At that point, I would think that you would add a note somehow that it was now the Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services. And just to make it clear what we're talking about, Nancy.
Okay.
And down the bottom, right on in the paragraph, page 3, and the wood processor for the jail, the wood processor for the farm.
Anything else?
Yeah, I have one note, but I don't know what I wrote. It says, what was this, but I didn't point out which paragraph it was. And that's all of them.
Do you have any corrections?
On page 1, I think you can see the first, second, third, the fourth, by Damon Steer. I think Damon is with an O. His name is just, I
Okay.
think, wrong. I read it at home when I received the minutes, and I had something, and no, I don't see it somewhere in the minutes where I need to add it, so I'll leave it out.
I'll make a motion that we approve the March 6th Commissioners' meeting minutes
Second.
as corrected. Seconded, all, any further discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
All right.
Aye, and so voted. Anything else to report on? my understanding that the subcommittee regarding the dispatch center is scheduled for this Friday at the nursing home. At what time?
I
Sure?
believe it's 1 o'clock.
I think you're right, 1 o'clock, right. So anybody that's interested in that should probably try to attend.
That's a subcounty?
This is the subcommittee headed up by Representative Crawford from Molten Borough. What I think people don't realize is that the procedure, if that should pass the delegation, then each town would be billed an additional fee on top of what they are paying for taxes for the dispatch center. It becomes a real problem, but that's what would happen. So all the towns except for those three would pay additional money. So hopefully it doesn't go
And you said
anyways.
1 o'clock, huh?
Okay, anybody else got any comments?
You said that was 1 o'clock on Friday. right
1
there?
o'clock on Friday, yeah.
Thank you.
You want to report on the chief of police
Yes, I
meeting?
do. Was just putting this in so I wouldn't miss it. Last Thursday, I was invited to the gathering of the chief of police in Conway. I guess there were 5 or 6 towns represented. I would have thought there'd been more, but there weren't. And the discussion was about, or came up on Jason's new procedure for admittance to the jail if somebody's been taken there by the police or the sheriff and has or hasn't got any kind of a medical impairment. There were a lot of questions about the procedure. I'm not in the law enforcement end of things or the jail business, so I couldn't answer a lot. So we agreed to have Jason come with me April 11th to the next meeting, and so that he could answer the questions. And I think that was it, wasn't it, Sheriff?
Yes.
But they definitely had some concerns about the policy.
Did they bring up anything about the impound yard, Commissioner Babson?
Did they? They certainly did.
Were they in support of an impound yard or opposed to it?
They were, are you the chairman or a lawyer? Defense attorney here. They're in favor of it. I told them I wasn't, or where they wanted to put it. And
You were not in favor of where we wanted to put it, but you were in
yes,
favor of an impound yard.
That's what I said.
Okay.
And
Not being an attorney, I'm just trying to clarify that.
they definitely favor an impound yard here.
Okay.
And why wouldn't they? Because we take over the responsibility and the liability.
Well, it's between the sheriff's department and the county attorney as to whether they use those vehicles as evidence in a trial case. In some cases, they can take pictures of it, and that satisfies the defense attorney.
Help me out, Sheriff. I asked that question, and the answer wasn't quite that simple.
Well, it really is. It's up to the attorney to accept that.
Yeah.
A lot of attorneys won't because
Yeah.
they know the problem that it's causing the local police department or the county to hold on to that vehicle. So
Mhm.
that's what's right here. If they want to accept pictures, they can.
Okay, nothing else to report? Mr. Chandler?
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Morning.
Two things to update you on. Nothing too major. Census today is 102 with 6 skilled, and with a pending admission tomorrow will bring us up to full. Did have a good meeting yesterday with a senior representative of Staples. Not that I'm talking about specifically doing business with Staples, but wanted to find out what our options were with group purchasing, and came away very encouraged. We now know that there's at least one company who can actually deliver to multiple locations, but still give us the benefit of group purchasing, because with one centralized account. And we'll also be getting from her some actually bid documents, so that it would allow us to bid out either individually as the nursing home, or collectively, as you might direct me, for the county as a whole. But each department would reserve their right to order separately, but deliveries would all come on one day, and there'd be some potentially significant savings. So the group purchasing part, at the staff level, we're also, reviewing that tentative policy that I gave you, or the first draft, to continue to revise that, to make sure that we have something. A bid process works easily when you're buying a truck. It gets to be a bit more complicated when you're dealing with variable supplies, where there can be some pricing, but doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that it's a bit more complicated, and I think we're very close to continuing to refine that, so that we can, well, first of all, to meet the requirements of the law, the RSA, but also to meet the requirements of best practice and being open and transparent, so that everybody can have confidence that we're getting the best goods at the best price.
Right. You mentioned that it'd be delivered one day. Is that each week, each month?
Well, that'd be each week.
Wasn't discussed?
That'd be each week.
A weekly?
And if we did it, well, the goal there is that there's significant savings when you get deliveries of at least, with staples, of at least $250. In any one division of us, and there's essentially 5 divisions, might not come up to that, but collectively, but it would actually be delivered, should each department choose to, and there's no requirement that it be all or nothing. It would be delivered to the registry of deeds, it'd be delivered to the jail, it'd be delivered to the sheriff's department, it would be, and they'd actually get separate invoices. So it doesn't create paperwork, additional paperwork on any agency's part, which surprised me, and I found to be wonderful.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Well, I've been beating on this now for about 10 years, and I'm glad to see you're moving ahead with it, Howard. But to say that it doesn't create more paperwork, if you're delivering to 8 locations here, or 5 locations, it doesn't decrease the paperwork, because we have to have some kind of bill of lading that the materials were delivered, where the cost savings would be if we only got 1 bill instead of 6 bills, and that would be the cost saving.
Well, there's no extra cost to us. Now, whether or not, if we had centralized purchasing and centralized receiving, then you start talking about additional cost. You have a person, you have time, you have somebody that then has to allocate out the expense. My hope is now, and that we're going to be able, just by doing the bidding part, for something, let's say as simple as office supplies, to generate a savings from what any one of us are able to, without increasing work, and without it. Now, you might be right. There might be potentially greater savings, but we'd end up actually having to have a person who could do receiving, and then you have to move all the stuff around. So then there's, granted, it's out of overhead, but there'll be some other time and costs involved.
Well, you're correct. You have to have somebody at each of the locations, or have somebody that will go around and say, okay, we've got our 18 reams of paper and our 24 pens here at the jail, and all the way around. Also, I don't think people realize how much time Kathy Armstrong puts down in billing, and to have to match up bill of ladings with or packing slips with invoices is time consuming, and that's what she does. So I would ask that somehow, if you decide to work with Staples, that we come up with some program that limits as much paperwork as possible, so that when it gets downstairs, it may not cost you or your folks a lot of money, but every minute or 2 we can save downstairs for her is something else that gets done.
Well, and I'm not being an advocate of Staples, but what Staples will do is instead of the 3 of you signing 6 different checks for office supplies, Kathy would get individual. Everything would be just the same, but they would also have a master bill that would allow you to sign one check. That would, but yet would not create extra work for her. Because I'm very sensitive to that, because you don't want the unintended consequence effect, and we don't want to solve one problem and create another. Now, being encouraged by yesterday's meeting, it gives us the ability to put those same requirements on other providers for bidding, whether that be Office Max, or whatever other office suppliers that are out there, WB Mason and others. So, but I'm encouraged that there's at least one that's willing to do it in a way that would be easier for us, and possibly cheaper. We haven't done the comparison yet for bidding, so we don't know yet whether that all is less expensive, but I'm hopeful that it will be.
Yeah. I think the other concern that I would have is if we consolidate stuff, then we're not going to be able to, unless we have the slips with that, to say, I mean, that's one way of checking to make sure county taxpayers' money is spent appropriately. When we consolidate stuff, that may reduce that. So somehow or other, we still need to look at paper clips that are going to the nursing home, that's $50 or whatever, and so forth.
You would still have all the invoices. That part would not be changed, so that you would have the original detail, which is a good check and balance. I mean, you need to have that ability to have that oversight if you choose.
Okay. Okay.
Other things, the flagpole order has been placed, and to that end, I've actually had the opportunity. I did the due diligence last September of pricing out about 4 different flagpole people. So, in having placed that order so that we could have a flagpole at another place for Pearl Harbor Day, felt comfortable knowing this guy was 30 and 40% less than any other provider I could find. So felt comfortable going ahead, placing that order. He's going to send a confirmation, and there's been nothing binding at this point, but he has to actually make it. So
where is he located?
He is located. Is it Lindenborough or Lindenburg? It's New Hampshire.
Lineborough.
Lineborough. It's not Vermont. I don't know where that is.
Down next to Wilton and Milford. And,
oh, okay, down there.
I forget what's on the other side of it.
No, but he's willing to stand by his price, and he does do the installation, and so he's a crazy guy, but he does great work.
Question there.
Go ahead.
Howard, is this going to be a swedged or tapered flagpole, or is it going to be a straight pipe, galvanized, or is it going to be aluminum, or what is it going to be?
Hand laid up fiberglass.
Fiberglass.
With a real, it almost looks like a gel coat finish, a shiny finish with an exterior halyard and a round gold ball at the top.
So it's not metal. We're not going to have additional maintenance on it as time goes by.
No, and in fact, had checked some of his work going back 20 and 30 years, and it has held up wonderfully. So it keeps it a little bit lighter. So it's quieter too, because you will do, even if you use a nylon fitting for attaching the flag, you do get some slap in high winds. So it'll be much quieter.
It's 30 feet.
30 feet above ground and 3 feet below ground.
Okay.
Other things, been working on the Trails project. Spoke with a Boy Scout troop leader last week and made arrangements for his 2 Eagle Scouts to be coming in, start doing some preliminary work as soon as they're able to make the contact. So I'm expecting to hear from them this week. Outside groups will be inviting, by way of Facebook, outside civic and not-for-profit groups to at least consider using Mountain View Community, and we will work with them to see what's appropriate time-wise and all, and the appropriate kind of meeting. A reminder that next Wednesday, March 20th, is a breakfast opportunity, for you all. A meet and greet for next week. I also have begun doing, I call it an origin analysis. It's kind of a statistical sampling of residents, and of note that our average, it's interesting. You can speculate a lot of things, but the numbers tell you more. The average age of our resident is 83.6 years, and the average length of stay is a remarkable 3.8 years. We have residents who have been there 10 plus, 13 plus, 14 plus years, and that'll never happen again. And not because of anything.
We had one that had been there 40 years.
Well, isn't that amazing?
Back a while ago.
Isn't that amazing? Not any longer.
Okay.
But 3.8 years. The average is going to be typically under 3 years. So it's not completely out of line.
You know what's scary about that? it's only a few years younger than the average age of the legislature. When I joined, it was 68 point something years old. I think it's a little younger now.
Now, did you bring up the average, or did you bring the
I brought
average
it down
down?
in
No,
those days.
that's good. And, you know, of note, and I think the number is actually going to be higher, but right now, 80, of those that we have clear knowledge of, and there are some that are a little fuzzy, 82% of our residents came from Carroll County, and that number is definitely increasing as, quite frankly, we become more stringent in our admission process.
Go ahead.
That's an interesting figure, Howie. Is that, if I move here for 6 months and then come here, am I considered a resident of Carroll County, or am I considered a transplant?
We would probably consider you a transplant. Had you been away in Florida for 2 years and came back, you lived here for 40 years and went to Florida for 2 years and came back, we'd consider you a Carroll County resident, because there's a logical and necessary connection there.
So
But we still wouldn't.
specifically, how did you get this figure? Where is the breakoff?
Well, and that's where it's fuzzy. We only put down the numbers that we could confirm. I suspect that it's higher than 82, but not being able to confirm it, because the records for some of those people that go back a long time are less than clear. You know, if it showed that they moved in from, you know, from Laconia, they weren't treated as Carroll County. What we don't know, and what they're not able to fully convey to us, is were they in Laconia for a month, 2 months? Were they ever from? We don't know the history. So I think the 82% is low, but now we're starting to track it very diligently. Now, when you do talk about, it's different for this purpose.
So what are you using for the parameters? That was my question.
Oh,
if you've gone to Florida for 2 years and come back, you're still a Carroll County resident. If you're
not for
what did you use?
Not for
what were your guidelines?
Not for purposes of admission. For this statistical
for this statistic.
For this, we actually had to show, you know, where was the mailing address before somebody came in, and if it wasn't in Carroll County, we didn't treat them as Carroll County, because we didn't have any way to really, well, we didn't spend the time to go back and call family to find out the whole story.
Well, how does that jibe with your example of 2 years in Florida?
That's if you were coming in, if somebody knew we're knocking on the door to come in, and they had never, if they had no association with Carroll County, they'd be at the bottom of every list there is. Top of the list is somebody who's presently living in Carroll County, and has been for at least a year, for whom this is their primary residence. Somewhere in between would be the person who had been here for 40 or 50 years and for health reasons had to move out because they couldn't find the care they needed. Mountain View might have been full. They might have had to leave Carroll County to go to in case in point, a nursing home in Meredith. And we see that. It doesn't seem right or fair to punish them because they had to go to some nursing home. You know, Wolfboro Bay was full. They're still a Carroll County resident who are receiving care elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But for these purposes, we did it strictly by the numbers. If they didn't have a prior residence, or if we didn't have clear knowledge of it, we treated them as being out of county.
You brought up the waiting list. My question would be, and it was in our last week's minutes, have you had a chance to talk with the staff over at the nursing home regarding the policy for the waiting list for people to get into the nursing home?
I have, and the staff is supportive. Is essentially what we have through the latest revision is a confirmation of what's been a matter of practice. But what we need to do, and I think why it's important for the county is for every chance we have is to make sure that our practice, that we get explicit about it so that anybody looking at it can have confidence in it. So it's not, we just don't want to say, trust us. We want to say, these are the rules that the commissioners have approved, and these are the guidelines by which we operate.
So do you have a final policy that they have looked at?
I do.
Okay.
And that's ready for your review at any time.
Go ahead, Mr. Batson.
How did you break the employees up in groups and have a group meeting and get that information? How'd you go about getting the information?
Oh, about the residents?
Yeah.
Oh, that's strictly by the file.
No. Your discussion was, I'm concerned that
Admittance policy.
Admissions policy was passed by the employees, you said the staff talked to you. Did you gather the employees together and discuss it?
Sent out copies to everybody that had any input into it, and then met and discussed it more specifically with Jen Chiavaci, who's the admission coordinator.
So
But
I
certainly,
guess you really, I thought you were gonna run it by all the people or most of the people that work there, so you could get a real feel across the board from supervisors to the low end folks that what their feeling was in the situation.
well, it got as far as the supervisors, and would certainly be glad to take it further if you, that's.
Well, I'd certainly like to know how other members feel.
No, that's,
I have a question. That Dan Shibaki, she is admission coordinator, you said.
correct.
Is that her only position, or does
No,
she have
she-
two positions?
She actually has two positions. She's she's admissions coordinator and social worker.
Excuse me, I didn't understand. Who
Yeah,
are you
what's it-
talking about?
Oh, Jennifer Chiavaci.
Oh, okay.
I
The admissions
mentioned
lady.
that she was admission coordinator, but she's also, we don't really have that many admissions. She spends as much, if not more time as social worker.
Okay.
Typically, in the normal course of events, she's doing admissions and taking the primary lead on Medicare, on the Medicare side of admissions and management. Not that she and Lisa don't cross back and forth. Although, except when she's not there, Jen takes almost the exclusive lead in admissions.
Okay. And I have another question to go back to the resident issue. How long do you need to live in Carroll County before you're considered a resident?
Well, right now, we're talking about informal policy because the commission hasn't approved the formal policy. So as a point of practice, we use 1 year as being, if somebody's been here a year, they're treated as being a full-fledged Carroll County resident. If they just moved in last week and up to a year, we'd be treating them as something less. More than somebody from out of county, but they wouldn't have the same priority as somebody in county. Here again, weighted, in fact, based on need. So that, we have residencies important, but need is equally, if not more important.
Okay, thank you.
You have any further questions?
No?
You and Paula need to be here on Monday at 9 o'clock for the delegation meeting. They'll be talking about revenue, and because revenue in the nursing home is so complicated, I would hope that you'd be here.
No, we're glad to.
Okay. They did approve the expense side, but we want to talk with you about raises that might be outside the union contract before you go ahead and do anything with that.
Okay.
And in fact, why don't you, is it my understanding that somebody has put together some kind of a schedule for the L&A increases that the delegation subcommittee talked about? Is that in a plan, or
Well, it is.
where it's going to?
Because essentially they modified your recommendation, essentially cut it in half by delaying it some and reducing it some. And I think their actual allocation was about half of what the commissioners' approval was then. So, but
Oh, wait a minute now. Union contract is in there.
that's in
So,
there.
That's in there. They recommended an increase over the union contract.
Becky came to us with an increase specific
Right.
to LNAs,
Yep.
which the commissioners approved in general terms at about a dollar amount, which the subcommittee effectively reduced to about half that. And also wanted to introduce some other terms and conditions with that, should it be.
Keep in mind,
I should say, would recommend to the commissioners to,
I guess that may not be the point that I'm trying to get. The delegation approves the funding. We're the ones that set the policy as to who gets what and so forth. That's what I was getting at before any raises are given out or any additional money outside the union contract. We control what the individuals get, and we're talking about L&As only now, I think.
correct, that would be outside
Right.
outside.
I'm glad that they're giving them more money, but That's all they can do is put more money in that line item,
Right.
okay?
And then we'll be, and it's our plan to come back to you with our proposal for, given the amount that's been approved, you know, what we'd recommend to you as to how it should be.
I'm concerned about the bump up. As you increase that, then the next level, they're gonna want an increase and so on. And it's never ending.
Contractually, with the bargaining unit, the only place where it gets to be an issue is that we can't increase beyond what a union member has. So, and most of this won't affect that, but we want to get very clear about that we don't create that unintended consequence of ill will.
Okay. Anything else?
The other thing I have is a week from this Friday, there'll be a wood pellet heating tour that's set up. Not this Friday, but a week from Friday. And the last thing I have is just
Excuse me, Howie, what time?
That is from 9:15 to noon. I think they meet at 9:15 and begin the tour at 9:30. And I'm not exactly sure of all the parties that are involved in that, but
So it's the 22nd?
correct. From 9:15 until noon.
Right. It was in the minutes, last week's minutes.
And the last thing I have for you is a request, if could have your permission, I have a group of staff members who have asked whether it'd be okay for them, I think on a 3 times a week basis, to exercise in the old building, in the annex.
Exercise?
But
But what is that? There are no machines and stuff there. What do you mean by
I think
exercise?
I don't even know what Zumba is. But
Oh, an exercise class.
It's a group of them who want to get together after work, but they don't want to do it in public.
Oh, after work?
Oh, yeah, no, it's not paid, it's not at all paid time, it's just, they just thought while they're here, you know, the moral support, Becky actually set up a wonderful program we have for the greatest losers, so there's greater health awareness and weight consciousness.
Yep.
So if
Any
there's no-
problem with that?
No?
Ash, you have any problem with that?
No.
Okay,
That's good.
they'll be
Okay.
pleased, and it'll help get us all healthy.
So they have like an instructor who's coming?
I know we do have one instructor, but I don't know exactly what they
Oh, okay.
have in mind. One of our staff, Patty Kane, is a Zumba instructor. Now, whether she's part of this particular group or not, I don't know. We were going to try to get that gal in Biddeford, but she seems to be otherwise tied up.
Okay, got anything else?
That's all I have.
While we're on the subject, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead.
I would just like to throw out some kudos to the nursing home subcommittee.
Yes.
And Representative Algren, I think they did about the best job that I've had in my memory on the
No
delegation.
question about
I
it.
thought Representative Algren did just an outstanding job.
Yep, I agree. He did an excellent job, and I think we should write a little note to him, thanking him for that service. And then all 3 of us, if we agree, ought to sign it and send it to him.
They were tough, but they were fair, they were reasonable, they listened, and they spent all kinds of time. I mean, they made a big commitment to the process. I mean, I think from a staff end, you know, and I say that as, you know, we didn't get everything that we asked for, but we felt that we were treated fairly throughout the whole process.
Yeah. They spent quite a bit of time, a lot more time than the full delegation did when they were trying to hurry up and get the budget done by noontime.
Yeah.
Which I had told the chairman that it would be the first the delegation ever got their budget done before the 1st of April.
You know, they're on their way.
Do you have another comment?
No, that was all. I was just really impressed with the job they did.
I
Thank
think
you,
all
Commissioner.
committees did a pretty good job, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, I think the subcommittees all of them spent a lot of time. They were talking about a delegation. The delegation meeting, they went into a short non-public session. I just want to say the minutes were not sealed, so they should be available Friday in the business office between 8 and 4.
The delegation?
The non-public session of the delegation, the minutes were not sealed.
That's correct.
That's their problem.
Yeah, well,
That's not our problem.
Yeah, I know, but it should be available now, Friday. between 8 and 4 in a business office.
Okay.
Point of order. Can I ask if that information came from the chair of the delegation or how that was obtained, that the minutes weren't sealed?
She publicly said, in my recollection, she publicly said she wasn't going to seal the minutes. Is that not correct, Commissioner Kenny? Isn't that what she said? They weren't going to seal the minutes?
The minutes were not sealed, yes.
Yep.
And the chairman of the delegation said that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I believe so. That's
I
my
didn't
recollection.
hear it, but, okay.
You can check the video and find out, but I'm pretty sure that's what she said.
No, you didn't record that, right? Because it's
He
non-public.
That's right.
doesn't record non-public
Yeah.
I
session.
think she said that when everyone started coming back in the room, because I recall hearing her say
Okay.
that also.
Oh, okay, then we're all set then. Thank you.
We're looking for Janice Sullivan, I guess.
What?
It was a 5-minute recess.
We have
We'll go get
recess.
to Janice.
Oh.
And Janice Sullivan, Human Resource Director, have anything for the general public?
I do. I have a couple of things. First, at the last meeting, we had discussed evaluations, and I was asked to put together a self-evaluation portion of it.
Yep.
So I just wanted you to see that I did do that. It coincides exactly with the paragraphs of the original evaluation form. So that would be something given to a director or
Department
something
head.
in advance. You folks would have the opportunity to review it prior to sitting down and actually doing the evaluation.
Yeah, looks good.
I get some questions.
Go ahead.
I had a inquiry from a constituent asking if we're going to go with the 360, whatever you call that program.
360 degree.
Are we going to do it, or
That's
can you
entirely up
explain
to
to me
you.
what it is?
I sure can. I've used those many times. A 360 evaluation is generally, it's very, very helpful in a situation like this where you folks only interact with the department heads or not elected officials, but appointed officials once a week for the most part. What happens with the 360 is that their underlings, the people that report to them, actually have the opportunity to evaluate their performance. For me, it would probably be the other department heads as opposed to, well, it would be Deb. It would probably be the payroll office, but then all the department heads would be evaluating me on certain criteria. With Howie, it would be the director of nursing and all his different department heads. So it gives you folks an idea of how they're viewed amongst the people that report directly to them.
Yep.
In terms of scoring, I've seen it done a couple of different ways because it has the tendency sometimes to be viewed as an opportunity to get even, particularly if someone has been called on the carpet for something.
Yep.
Usually the high and low scores you kind of sort of discount. I mean, you look at the comments, but you sort of discount them, and the middle of the road is usually the clearest picture of performance because not everybody's going to be a fan. But it really gives you some feedback on communication, leadership skills. It's an excellent tool when done correctly.
And how do we,
Go ahead, yeah.
do you have a form or that we could see, or?
Not on me, no, but I can certainly get them. I used them even in a ski area where I had 200 ski instructors evaluate the two top of the ski school. So it can be done.
They wouldn't use the regular evaluation form?
No, because you're evaluating different criteria. Normally, when a department manager is evaluating somebody under them, they're looking at certain items. These folks, you're asking them to evaluate them on how they communicate with their subordinates, how their leadership qualities, what they feel, if anything, could be improved. It's a little the focus is a little bit different.
How long would it take you to put that together?
Oh, it won't take long, but administering it is the tough part.
Yeah.
Because people have to believe, number one, that it's going to be confidential, that it'll never come back to
Yeah.
bite them.
Why can't they fill it out as a anonymous,
How do you know you've gotten all the ones you need, though? What there really needs to be is like one neutral person, or maybe Kathy Gary could collect them for me. Maybe I could collect them for Howie, so that I know I've got everybody. If I only have 2 anonymous forms come back and I've sent out 10, is that really going to give us the true picture?
But maybe they decided not to evaluate.
They could very well, and you can't really force someone, but
No.
if you view it as a tool to help you get better at your job and look at the areas that people feel you're not doing as well. And I can tell you, there's been a lot of surprises when we've done 360 reviews in other areas. Areas that folks scored themselves very, very high, maybe their staff feels not so much, and quite the opposite in other areas.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well,
I think we should look into doing this, because I don't feel I'm in any position to judge the job that Jan does. Well, perhaps Jan, but certainly not Howie. Certainly not.
yeah, yeah. So when could you put that form together? Because we need to really get going on that.
putting the form together is not the issue.
Yep.
It's getting them out to folks, talking
We
with
can
them
get
about what
out-
it's
We
about.
can get them out to people.
Making them understand what it's about, what it's
Yep.
going to be used for, how it's going to be used, getting the format back, and then, I mean, it's not something that should take a long time by any means. It shouldn't.
Would you recommend that after you make the form up, that the commissioners talk to the various people that are going to evaluate their boss? Or that the boss should hand them out, or you should hand them out?
The boss should never hand them out, I
Well,
don't think.
That was a setup, I knew. That it comes down to you or the board.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, which?
the board,
The board.
I would think. I think it carries
Chance
more
to talk
weight.
to a chance to talk to the
A chance to
employees
communicate,
and-
yeah, which is always important, but also it puts a level of importance on it that perhaps needs to be there if it comes from the board.
Now, if we give them the option of not signing it or signing it, is that, would that be helpful?
That
Be
depends.
too bad if you give it out to 10 people and 9 sign it, we know who the 10th one is.
Well, yeah, true. I think that's up to you. I think you're going to get honest answers if people don't feel that they can be identified. However, I've seen people go to great lengths, even though, like I said, in the ski school of 200, they'll go and type the answers because they don't want their handwriting to ever be evaluated or identified as being part of theirs. You can make all the assurances in the world. Some people are going to believe that it's going to come back to bite them. I don't know.
I think it ought to be the option. If they want to sign it, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine.
As long
as we know how many are given out, so
you have a good percentage.
we have an idea as to how many are coming back.
Right. Normally, you're not going to get 100% back.
Yeah.
You're just not, for a variety of reasons. But they are an excellent tool, as I said, and they can be very, very helpful. And particularly, a lot is going to be how they're worded, because this is not the opportunity for someone to go and bash someone because they were disciplined. It is very specific criteria, and then at the end, put in your thoughts as to what could be improved.
Yeah.
Maybe what they like best, what they feel needs work, but they are very helpful.
Yeah.
Do you, ahead of time, pick out the individuals that you're, let's take Howie, because he has the biggest crew to work with.
Yep.
Do you pick out the people ahead of time that you're going to give this form to, or
Yes.
do you put a pile on the table and say, take one if you want one?
No.
Or how does that work?
No, normally, when I've done it, direct reports. So for Howie, it would be all of the heads of his various departments, including Director of Nursing. So everyone from, it may not be that activities reports directly to him. I'm not sure what the setup is, but They should have a say. Every major department within the nursing home should have a say. The jail might be a little bit more difficult because it's not, maybe the jail, maybe Jason would have to have a similar one to me, where it would be other department heads working with, to the extent they do. Unless we just did.
If we were evaluating Jason,
Mhm.
then I would think the captain and the sergeants definitely would
lieutenant.
be, and lieutenant, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so
would
you
be
might have
included.
enough of a sampling there.
Yeah.
Yeah. However you want to do it.
Okay, let's see if we can't get that form put together, and
Yep.
especially for Howie and yourself, we need to get those two evaluations done fairly quickly.
Do you want those self-evaluations completed? Because if we're going to do a 360,
You gotta have this.
the 360, the individual evaluation should mirror the one that the staff is filling out. So in other words, you're evaluating yourself on the identical criteria that your staff is evaluating you on. This is more for you folks to evaluate a department head. Which way do you want to do it?
Self-evaluation.
It is, but it goes with the evaluation I had given you folks last week that you had decided you wanted to go with.
Yeah.
Did we have to make a motion to accept that today, David?
I think we should.
Could I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Perhaps for an annual or at the end of a 6-month, use the form that we're going with now.
This
But
one. Yeah.
pick a point during the year where you want to do a 360 as a measure of how things are going, so you can kind of have your finger on the pulse of where things are at mid-year. It's a different process.
Well, you establish when you're gonna give the individual his or her review or not. Birthday, anniversary date, whatever
Right.
it is.
Right.
Ooh, something's hot's going on here.
Normally, it would be done on their annual and their anniversary.
My question, I'd like to see it done on the anniversary, but Jan's is speaking to when we have to get going on.
Well, what I'm
on-
saying
on
is,
us.
you
Do
could-
you do it 2 months ahead of time, or you do it a month ahead of time, or?
You can treat them, the 360 and this, as two separate criteria, two separate forms of measuring performance. You can do the commissioner's evaluation, if you choose to, annually, but do a 360 mid-year so that you know, and can use that then in the annual evaluation. So you know where the staff are at. If they're seeing things in the same way, review that and use that at the time of the final evaluation. So they're really two separate things.
I don't want to tie everybody down and make it a long, lengthy evaluation, but we want it to be a fair evaluation as well. So if you could put together what the department heads, how the form that they would use to evaluate their supervisor or their department head.
Okay.
Then that's the first to go out, right?
Yep.
And then the individual does their own self-evaluation, and then we collect all those, somebody does, and then we use those to make our final evaluation, right?
We can make it all one process, or it can be two separate. It's up to you.
I envision it being one. I envision the department heads in the different, the division heads, or whatever you want to call them, the people that report to Howie, the people that report to Jason. I would assume that would get done while they're doing their self-evaluation, and then we sit down and
Pull them all together.
pull it all together at anniversary time and determine where we're going from there.
Sounds good?
Well, then we do our evaluation, and then we call the individual in that we
Oh, yeah.
evaluated, and see about comparing the self-evaluation against our evaluation, and talk about where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and recommendations as to how they might improve themselves or whatever professionally. Okay? All right, can we get that by next week?
You can.
Okay.
Do you have the corrected national handbook?
And we just made the change that Melissa Seamans had noted on the social networking policy.
Thank you.
That there was a
Thank you.
phrase or a word missing. So we did correct that. So what that will require, once you've reviewed it all, is I just need one commissioner signature page. So,
And what was missing?
on the social networking policy or social media policy, on page 27,
Jan,
Wait a minute, what was the
in
change?
page 27, paragraph A.
Yep.
Originally, it said employees may identify themselves of the county. Now it says as employees of the county. The words as employees were missing.
Okay.
So the word as, the only word as was
As
missing.
employees.
Okay, go ahead.
I was really quite concerned with the comments this morning from the public on the social media networking policy. Because I do agree there's some free speech
Yep.
problems here when you start telling people that they can't talk about what they're doing or their boss or whatever it may be on a social media. On the other hand, I can see the damage done if they put so much stuff out that we may have a person that wants to come here and reads this stuff and says, no, I'm not going to come here because I read this on the social media page. Is there a way to is there a network where we can find out what other people are doing about this matter?
Absolutely. This policy, I think, as I mentioned, came from, he's now Deputy Chief McDonald. He is also an attorney. It came from the NACO conference that we went to. This is his policy. It has been tested in court. It has survived scrutiny. With that being said, there are always additional challenges that could come up, and we may have to make some revisions. This is really, the social media policy is trying to recognize that our ways of communicating have changed, that bullying and harassment can take place through social media networking sites, that managers have to be extremely careful in friending or liking comments that are made by subordinates on there, because they can and have been held accountable for that. In addition, there could be sensitive information that's leaked through Facebook or other social networking sites without even intending to. It could compromise safety in certain departments, whether it's the sheriff's office or corrections.
Security, yeah.
Now, am I going to be the social media police and be patrolling Facebook? No. But if something is brought to us, we would have the right to act on it.
This morning, somebody said we should be adding the webpage.
Well, I think the
Under the
catch-all
policy?
phrase in here, there's a catch-all phrase that talks about including but not limited to
Yeah.
blogs, networking sites, photo sharing, video sharing, and so forth.
So which page are you now? Still 27?
27, and it says the absence or lack of explicit reference to a specific site doesn't limit the extent. So in other words, the fact that we don't, there's new technology coming up every, every so often.
What paragraph is that in?
Policy, it's under the policy. If you read down,
Type of network, okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to think about this a little bit more.
Okay.
I have some real concerns about an individual's right to express themselves, and without going to court or without.
there is always a balance between First Amendment rights and also an employer's rights.
Absolutely.
We are not trying to, in any way through this, limit somebody's ability to say whether or not they like their job. That's up to them. and I think that's pretty clear. But if it is used in a way that could compromise safety, security, harass, or intend to injure someone else on the job, not everything they do off the job is off limits. It does flow over, some of it, and there has to be an awareness of that. If you want to take some more time and look at it, that's fine.
I would like to at least till next week.
Okay.
On this particular one, or all of them?
No, just this one. I think the other rest of it's fine.
You want to take any action on the rest of them?
You make a lot of changes all over, huh?
Each week,
We had all the
we went back
changes what you
and
made.
made the changes.
So
I'm
actually-
sorry, the only change that I did not make, because I was able to clarify this, you folks had wanted something, the board had wanted something in there about if an individual brings a grievance forward, requests that it be public, that they then cannot change their mind and go non-public in order to avoid a situation that
Yeah.
we can't do that. It
Why?
is the employee's absolute right to change their mind and request, even if it's midstream, non-public.
Is that a federal law?
No, it's not federal.
Is it a New Hampshire RSA?
I can't give you the specific RSA, but I can tell you that both Attorney Clausen and Liz Bailey at 2 different times, not on the clock for us, have told us that cannot be done because it is the employee's right. It's
Well,
like-
it maybe is right, but it just doesn't seem right that an
I
employee
agree.
can come in here and wail away on a board,
Mhm.
demanding an open hearing, and after he got all his whacks in, the next week say, no, I decided I want a non-public hearing. So
I agree.
that nobody hears the other side of the story.
I
To
understand.
me, that's dead wrong.
I guess one way of doing that is to do it that day.
Mm.
Unless right after he says he wants it open, now he wants it closed, then we close it. But
I believe you will hear always a part of the other side of the story, but because there is a newspaper who always publicize non-public information and minutes where are still sealed.
okay, what is the privilege of the board regarding this personal reference guide?
I
Is there
think
any?
that
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I think that a board needs to read it one more time,
Okay.
go over everything,
Mhm.
and see if we want to add something or take something out,
Mhm.
and then we need to approve it.
Okay,
I agree with that.
okay.
May I also say, I have been talking with the superintendent from the jail, and he is interested potentially in adding a policy in there about reasonable suspicion drug and alcohol searches, which is allowed. But it has to be spelled out very clearly. That is actually one of the topics for our HR affiliate meeting on Friday down in Concord. So the timing is perfect to see what others are doing,
Yeah.
what the cost involved is, but there has to be also specific training so that both supervisors can identify the signs.
Not only true for the jail, though, it could be true for the nurse, it could be true for anybody.
That's what that's most definitely what we're talking about, but it's different from pre-employment drug screening. Reasonable suspicion brings with it some responsibility because there are other health conditions that at times can mimic intoxication of some kind. So it's a little bit more involved. We have to, but it is something we're definitely taking a look at. So that might be a supplement. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you is recently there was a bill presented. I had sent you folks copies of it. There was hearings about bullying and anti-bullying and workplace violence and whether or not there needed to be additional language for counties and state employees. Betsy Miller asked all of us to send in what our policies were and held our county policy, Carroll County's, up as the example, and it was defeated for counties. They said, this is great. This is exactly what we wanted because it had the anti-bullying language in it. So Betsy just wanted us to know, kudos, But
good.
that policy is exactly what they need. It looks like it's going to, that bill is only going to apply to state agencies now and not counties or towns, so. Okay.
Sounds good.
This is the addendum to the Carroll County Corrections Collective Bargaining. Jason, I finally got his signature. He's been unavailable, but he did scan it into his phone and send it to me, so that is ready for signature. And we can take care of that.
That was on an email. I got it.
Good.
The public information?
I would say so. No, it's public information.
Okay,
The discussion of it was held in public.
okay. You want to sign it?
Yeah, sure.
I'll read it so the general public will know what it's about. This is an addendum to the union contract with the jail. On February 13th, 2013, the Carroll County Board of Commissioners voted to approve Superintendent Jason Johnson's request for a one-time lump sum payment to correctional officers Tracy Newland and Ian Morrison for their extraordinary efforts in working over and above their scheduled hours and rank for an extended period of time during a critical staffing shortage. This additional one-time lump sum payment is not intended to set a precedent or future acts, nor does it create an expectation of additional compensation over and above the terms of the contract. We were short-handed when there was some issues that came up and people were suspended, and these people filled in the shifts and so forth. So we felt that if they're filling in the shift of a supervisor, then they should be paid the supervisor pay. So that basically, we didn't mention any dollars in there, but it's a difference of what they were making and what the person they were filling in for was making. That would be made up as this one lump sum.
Less what the contract gave them.
Excuse me?
Less what the contract gave them.
Oh, they actually gave more than the contract, remember?
They're getting more than what the contract is because they were filling a position.
Yes, but it didn't include also the contract raise. It was strictly, it was a lump sum giving to them less the contract, 41 cents or whatever it was.
No, it was more than that, more than what the contract.
Okay, whatever it is.
The contract said a certain number and he went over it. He
Yes,
was here and I asked the question and that is what he answered. It was more, substantial more than what the contract actually suggests.
Well, look, maybe we're not all agreeing here. Maybe we need some clarification. My understanding was that if Tracy Newland was making a certain amount of money and he was filling in a sergeant's position or a supervisor's position,
You get the sergeant.
the difference between what he was making and what the sergeant was making is this one lump sum.
Right, but the contract says they'll get either 41 or 45 cents, whatever it is. That wasn't included in that, so it wasn't over and above that. It was substantially more, but it was what the sergeant would be getting.
Right, right. Is that your understanding, Asha?
Well, my understanding is it was more than a contract because I wanted to go with what a contract is saying, but they went over above.
I think Kathy Gary is reviewing those numbers or has reviewed them by now.
She's reviewing the numbers. I thought they
The
already
numbers.
got the checks. It was already cut.
No.
I don't
Did they
think
get
so.
paid?
I
No,
don't think
not
so.
yet.
I I know we were waiting for this as well as the verification.
You're not gonna sign it?
No, because, remember, I voted against it because I want to go with a contract, the numbers of the contract.
Okay.
We have Ken Fanjoy of the union, Jason Johnson, and 2 of the commissioners, so that should be
Yep, that's good.
sufficient. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have, with the exception of, we're undertaking a huge project right now. One of the many things that we have to do in bringing into compliance different things within the county, just because laws have changed, personnel laws have changed. Department of Homeland Security has come out with a brand new, what they call an I-9 form, which you need 2 forms of ID or a passport, and it verifies who you are and your ability to work in the United States. All brand new employees have to go with this new form. However, with older forms that we have, many of the documents are out of date. For example, when I signed mine and filled mine out, my driver's license expires this summer. I have to go and get a new one. An expired driver's license is not valid, even though it was valid at the time it was signed. Okay? So what we're doing to ensure that we have every single I-9 that we need, because they weren't always kept. There were, I don't think the HR department's even been in existence for all that long.
Right.
We're going back to the beginning, and we're going to have everybody do the new form, just to make sure that we're 100% in compliance with everything. All forms are up to date. We have one for every single person, because I've pulled out personnel files and found them in there. They don't belong in personnel files. They've never belonged in there. Or there's a signature missing. So just to make sure we don't get in trouble, because that is a hot button.
Mm-hmm.
For INS and for Homeland Security.
And so what are the forms that are acceptable?
Well,
Driver's license?
there's actually lists of forms, but the most common is a driver's license and social security card. In order for us, for someone to take part in New Hampshire State Retirement, we have to have a copy of the security card regardless, because that has to be sent into the state. You can either have one from the driver's license column and one document from Social Security, or you can have a passport, and the passport can be an expired passport. That's one of the only documents that it doesn't matter whether or not it's current.
Are you saying, Jan, you need 2 of the others, or just 1 passport?
Yep.
So if you get the passport, you don't need the others?
Exactly.
Okay.
Except if you're part of the retirement system. We still need a
Right.
photocopy of the Social Security card for that. So that's, it's a daunting task, but we're starting that process now, and that's something that the auditors will be looking at too, the
Mhm.
current auditors, so. And
Okay.
then that's it for me, except for a non-public.
You have non-public?
You have non-public?
I do,
Okay.
yeah, with Howie, I've got to call him.
So,
back over.
are you coming to,
And
Chapter.
Captain
I don't know,
Fowler has
because I see that
non-public also.
we
right?
have got to follow
Mike, you got
non-public.
non-public?
Yeah.
If you want me there, I don't know what it's
Are
about.
you coming separate or?
Separately, yes, for a nursing home issue.
Oh, okay, so we have nursing home here, and we
We-
have jail.
We had talked about Kronos coming in.
Mm-hmm. I
When
haven't
are
heard
they
back
coming?
from them.
What's that?
I haven't heard back from them, interesting enough.
Time to call them.
Yeah. Well, I do have to call them anyway, because we're ready to go. We're getting turned on, and I want the scheduling piece turned on. People are doing, by and large, really catching on well with
Mhm.
this, and with inputting schedules, and
Everybody's on it now.
everybody's on it. I can't say everybody's punching faithfully, but everybody's capable
They don't
of doing
punch,
it.
then they don't get paid.
I know, but this is a learning process, baby steps.
Yeah.
They have to be
Yeah.
reminded, and
Okay. And that includes everybody, except for the sheriff's
except for,
department?
well, with the sheriff's department, they're a little bit different because the deputies
They don't
aren't
come
here.
in.
We're going to, as long as their schedules are in there, they'll get paid from their schedule unless there's a sick day, a holiday, then it'll change.
Mhm.
Salaried people are not punching in and out. All hourly folks are.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for Kathy Gary to get me, I've given her a spreadsheet of how Kronos wants the accruals, so the vacation, the holiday, the sick, how they want it to come over. The next step is upload that, we're live there. They can turn on the scheduling piece, we're live there.
Yeah.
Of course, they want money from us, so,
And dispatch is all right.
yes.
They
they're fine.
follow just like everybody else.
Right, right.
Okay. Well, you say it's up and running.
It is.
And so maybe it's time to have Kronos representative come in?
I thought they were coming in.
They were.
Well, they canceled.
They
Canceled because of the snow. There's no snow anymore.
No,
Get
it
them in
wasn't
here.
because, I'll call them today and reschedule.
Where are they coming from, those Kronos people? Do they have to come from another state, or have to fly in?
No, they're in New Hampshire. I
Oh,
think it's
okay.
down around the Exeter area, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I may be incorrect, but might be Manchester, actually.
Okay. Anything else to be brought up this morning?
Yes.
Yes.
For the commissioners?
Before we go into public
Oh,
input.
okay, yeah, I have something quick. There was an issue going on in the commissioner's office, money issue. So I think it is important that we have maybe a different auditor coming in and audit the financial administration and going back for at least the last 10 years.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand, Asher. You want to go back 10 years for what?
I said there was an issue going on in the commissioner's office, a money issue. And I think, or I suggest, a different auditor coming in and go back for the last 10 years and take a look at the financial administration.
Do you have any idea what that might cost?
We already have money in for an auditor.
And the auditor is in here today, looking at the nursing home in particular, because they have to have a report into Concord before anything else. So they're looking at the nursing home presently. They've changed the status since last year. I think last year was the first year. After the auditing committee or the auditing agency comes in and audits all our books, then they have to have somebody else come in and look it over to make sure that they've covered everything. So there's a double layer there to make sure that it's done correctly. They not only audit our books, they audit cooperative extension. There's another one. Cooperative extension. I can't think of the other one right now. But anyway, there's a double layer now on making sure that the auditing agency does their job and somebody else comes in and makes a judgment as whether they did or not. And that was one of the reasons why the auditing section in our budget was increased.
David?
Anyway, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I hear that it's a form and they're looking only at that form and filling that in. So is that not correct?
They go through, they're here for a whole week. They go through and make sure that the money is spent where it's supposed to be spent. And other than that, you can talk with the auditing firm. In fact, they're right straight across the hall if you have any questions of them.
And what is the name again? Oh, I can go, I can just
Yeah.
walk.
Okay. All right, you done?
I have something else. Wait.
You have a question about the auditing?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I spoke with a gentleman yesterday, and he informed me that we haven't done any financial auditing for the last 2 years, and I would like to make a suggestion that we invite 2 or 3 or 4 auditors in here. I'm not an auditor. I don't know much about it, except numbers go in a column and should add up, and have them talk to us about what we really need to have done as oversight for the county. The gentleman I talked to yesterday said he's just filling in, I believe that's what Commissioner Kenny said, filling in forms for Medicaid and Medicare. He isn't doing any financial reporting whatsoever.
And we should be, especially under what's happened in the last couple of months. But I don't feel comfortable. I never have with it. I questioned the gentleman 2 or 3 years ago when there was some skullduggery going on in the sheriff's department, and he just looked at me and said, "We're not paid to do that."
That's right.
And I think we should get somebody in here that knows something about accounting and can explain to us, when we hire an accountant, what we should be able to expect from these people.
Okay. What he said yesterday probably was what I just said. They're doing the nursing home right
Yes.
now, so they can get in there, the information in, so they can submit it to Concord. Otherwise, the jail is audited, everybody is audited on the complex. Again, as to my understanding is that when the money's been approved for certain things, they check to make sure those certain things that were approved is followed through and done. And if there's anything extra, they'll go back through the minutes and look to see if that had been approved or not. As far as looking at financial issues, that may be separate. That may come out of this audit, what do they call it?
Performance audit.
Performance audit, as to where things should be improved in that matter.
Well,
You want to head that up to make sure that we get 2 auditors or 3 auditors or whatever?
or one auditor, anybody.
Anybody, okay.
Just to explain it to them. I'm just not comfortable with it. I don't, you know, when shotguns turn up onto education and conferences, and private clothing turns up onto uniforms, it's out of control, and I always thought that's what an accountant was supposed to do.
I did too, and that you're exactly right, that did happen. And I had talked to that auditor too, and he said, we have no control over that. Okay, all right, so you have somebody that could come in, okay. Do you have anything else to bring up this morning?
Yes, just one thing, quickly. In talking, I talked to Lisa Howard about purchasing the other day, and at the time, she informed me, I was under the impression that she was buying office supplies for the jail, and as you know, the total bill last year for office supplies was just a few pennies under $38,000. And I was wondering why, and maybe Captain Fowler can tell us who's doing the purchasing over in the jail for office supplies, and why we aren't all going through Lisa Howard for our office supplies. And that goes for downstairs also.
Okay. And she said she's not doing office supplies for the jail?
That's what she told me. She
Okay.
is doing things like toilet paper and other stuff that they use. And
That's common.
It's
yeah.
common, and
Okay.
that's all I have.
Oh, I have a little thing. When I was just elected, I came into office, I asked how I can store the papers, what I need to have. And I asked for the safe, I didn't get it. I got old file cabinet, it was broken in. So I get another old file cabinet. I bought my own lock and I put it in. We have now a new board, so we have a new commissioner. I asked again, I just want to have a safe so I can appropriately store the documents in what I need to be stored in. So I request that the commissioners appropriate some money so I can have a safe to store the documents in.
Go ahead, Mr. Babson.
I think, I just read somewhere where county papers are supposed to be kept in a county safe and not in a personal safe on the complex. The law says the county safe or some such thing. It was either in the handbook we got down in Concord 2 weeks ago, or it was somewhere. It had all of the RSAs. Is that the blue book we have downstairs?
It could be. I remember seeing that, and I think we ought to purchase a safe, but the safe is open to all 3 commissioners and not just one.
Correct.
I think that is what's in that manual.
But let's review that and
Okay.
discuss that item next week. And that we buy one for the office. Whether it be combination or what, I don't know.
Because the commissioner of the clerk need to store the paper sheet.
That's right. But it's available to all three commissioners. Anything else we need to bring up this morning? No?
No, not today, because we have somebody coming in for non-public.
Yeah,
So, and he's waiting here already.
I know, yeah.
So, next week I bring a couple things up.
Okay. Public input from anybody? Mr. Brown?
Can you clarify what's going on with dispatch before, the 3 towns that were questioning whether they wanted to have some sort of reimbursement, and at the end of that, that was not gonna happen, but you brought something up about this morning about now they're gonna change that and charge the rest of the towns?
I'll take that.
Yeah,
The difference?
go ahead.
Steve, what is meeting on Representative Crawford requested that the delegation just take a look at the possibility of Molten Borough, Wolfboro, and Dundee. Will you sit still? You got us going back and forth here. She requested that they at least put together a subcommittee, and tomorrow or Friday, that's the first meeting, just to discuss the ramifications of doing it one way or another.
So they're just revisiting what they...
Well, they haven't revisited it at all. All you've heard is various representatives here say, oh yeah, I'd support it, or no, I wouldn't support it. There's never been a vote taken, as far as I know. This is just a discussion to see what the ramifications are.
Well, all I'm saying is, I know this isn't the first time that it has been discussed.
Right.
Okay.
It has been discussed maybe last fall or something like that.
Yeah,
And it...
Oh, it was brought up that that those 3 towns wanted to do it, and the town managers came in here and discussed it. But it never went any farther than that at that point.
Right, and I just wanted to get clarification that, so they're just going to discuss this.
Yes.
Yeah. And they'll have to bring it up to a full delegation for a vote. But the procedure, as far as I know from Kathy Geary, is that each town would have an extra bill to make up that difference.
If the 3 towns...
If the delegation approves
the...
that they get a break on their taxes, basically. It's a can of worms, but we'll see how...
Worm?
You campaigned on it, Commissioner Batson. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Albee.
Kind of running through this backwards a little bit. It's not the auditor's job to monitor your cash controls.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do that. You need to review your cash controls, because the auditor would never have been able to figure out, from what little I understand of the issue at hand, whether or not that was appropriately spent or not. Their job is just to see what the departments are doing. The employee handbook language that you're concerned about, you don't have, in an employment situation, you don't have an absolute right to say whatever you want. But more importantly, without language in the employee handbook that says that you don't want them revealing whatever information you don't want them revealing, you don't have any protection if that information gets out. So let's assume for a moment that someone says something on their Facebook page that reveals some personnel issue about someone else, and that someone else sues the county. If you have it in your handbook that it was your direction that they shouldn't reveal information such as that on their personal Facebook pages, then that's your position when you go to court. Yeah. And you're more than likely to prevail. If you don't have any language whatsoever, then whoever is suing you is going to say, well, you didn't care what anybody said, so you're obviously complicit in whatever they did say. So it's important to have some control over what you do. On the census of the population in the nursing home, you don't get to have it both ways. Just make sure you're clear on that. If your ultimate goal is to have 100% Carroll County population in the nursing home, then you need to disregard your cash flow issues. You need to accept the fact that you're not going to have 60% of the people being private pay or 40% being private pay. You can't control that if you're pushing 100% population for Carroll County. So just be aware that
That's a hard nut to crack.
It certainly is.
I think, you know.
On the one hand, you got money, on the other hand, you got people.
That isn't the issue, Chip. The issue is, we want 102 residents. We just want to make sure, or I feel that we should be sure that
No Carroll County residents.
some preference is given to Carroll County residents. If there's an opening and no Carroll County residents, we're not going to say, hey, we're not going to take anybody else.
But when you have a 3-year stay average, I think it's more important to try to set up some sort of system whereby if a Carroll County resident is turned away, that you know about it. Because I don't remember ever being informed of a Carroll County resident being turned away from the Mountain View nursing home, unless it was for some real major health issue that we couldn't deal with. But as far as we don't have room for you, you can't come here. But I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying the commissioners haven't been informed about that, and I think that's...
You're true in both cases. One is that, we couldn't provide the service, so we couldn't take the individual. The other thing was that there was a person in a different nursing home, whether it's private or a county in another county, and they're a resident of Carroll County. They wanted to move here. That's a different situation, and it was turned down mainly because the person was out of control. Now, I guess my feeling is that we have a couple of people that are out of control now in our nursing home. How many people can we take care of that are out of control? All of a sudden, we're police officers, and we're not providing the service that we should be providing for those individuals that are there.
My only point was to illustrate that there are consequences when you start being purist. I mean, if you purely want Carroll County residents only, there are going to be financial consequences, and just be aware of it. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do. Just saying.
I think that was brought up also at a delegation meeting when Representative Algren was trying to put a certain percentage on different categories. Because the delegation is interested in having a full all beds filled in a nursing home, but they also want to make money to offset the costs of the nursing home. So I think that's what you're getting at, and that's what's a hard nut to crack as to,
it's a balance.
Skilled and unskilled.
It's a balance that you have to keep.
And I think it has to go back to the need of the individual, in my case. Go ahead.
The director of the nursing home. Lastly, on the office supplies, I don't think you know or could put your hands on what exactly we need for office supplies for a 3-month period, because you have 5 different departments buying 5 different things all the time. Just a suggestion, I mean, Howie brought in Staples as one, you could probably pick any of them. Maybe put together a 6-month trial program of a single source, single delivery, and require that you get an invoice or a tally of exactly what you used over that 6 months, so that you can actually put a bid out that would illustrate to the person receiving the bid or making the bid what your needs are, so they could actually give you a really good price on things.
Go ahead.
Lisa Howard, Chip, has done that, but not for 6 months. She's done it for a 3 months period of the 25 major items to get some idea when you go out for quote what the chances are you'll be using quite a bit of. So yes, it's a way to go if you're going to get someone to quote it.
Thanks.
Anything else?
I'm only the messenger.
Okay. Anybody else got any public input?
Up here?
Go ahead.
I'm Ruben Isley. I was wondering why couldn't you accept somebody The way I see it, the way I'm looking at it, if you're denying somebody from another state or another county, you're still denying an American citizen. An American citizen from the United States will turn down from another state. And I'm looking at a taxpayer on lakefront property. And they live in Massachusetts, they should be entitled to some rights up here. It's my opinion, I know you're looking at me, but
Yeah.
isn't this a free country? I mean, don't we help each other as far as, it seems like we're being segregated. We don't want no more outsiders, but yet we have people come up from Massachusetts, they leave a lot of tax revenue. And it's lakes, a lot of it's, and that's what's keeping Wakefield, fortunately. I know Steve doesn't agree with me sometimes, but we're glad we have those lakes down there, those tax. So that's all I got to say.
Good point.
I don't think that if people are getting denied, I think the issue is about preference, that who is getting preference for, is it a residents from Carroll County or from outside, but they're not getting denied.
But then again, I take pitch on what you said as far as if there's a patient you can't handle, I can see.
I think they're looking at that, and the second is the need. So if they're coming from outside, then I think there is need, they're looking at them, and they're looking also how long are they living in Carroll County.
Now, there's one more thing. What if on the news there was a nursing home that got destroyed from a flood, and they had to evacuate?
Yeah.
Could this old nursing home be an emergency thing, or would you deny people from another state?
Could be a temporary holding area.
Right.
But the town hall in Ossipee is another holding area. I'm not sure about the jail. Maybe you can help me, Captain Fowler. Is a holding area for nursing home?
They're already holding people there.
We can evacuate to the old nursing home, yes, and do temporary housing.
Temporary.
Temporary, yeah. We wouldn't do anything long-term. We would just act as a shelter so we could bus people out.
And some of those people that are requiring particular medications would go to the hospitals as well. Now, some hospitals are overloaded too, so there are alternatives of where people could go should the nursing home get flooded out or burned out. There are places for them to go. It's in a plan. Yep. And transportation is included. Okay?
That's all I could. Thank you.
Okay. What's that?
I'd give it to Jan.
I'm not with it. Okay. We have a request for, 91A request, and we'll give it to the HR person to bring forward and look into it. Any further public comment? If not, we'll go into non-public for personnel with the jail and personnel with the nursing home.
Yes, just that nursing home.
Dundee, you must have gone back. I'm sorry. Time.
So I make a motion to go into non-public for personnel jail, and after that, personnel nursing home.
Second motion.
So all in favor, Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenny? Commissioner Bobson?
Yes.